Since time immemorial, we flourished on Turtle Island. This is our home, where we've raised generations upon generations of our children. Our languages, cultures, and ceremonies define who we are and our connection to this land. Great numbers of foreigners started arriving on our shores. Desires for furs drove them deep into our territories. Millions died through diseases that came with them. They also brought their system of education. All the while our foods were disappearing and our lands stolen. We began to starve. Soon a network of residential schools stretched from coast to coast to coast we were forced to attend. They finally closed these schools in the 1990s. By then, generations of us had attended. We are still here. These are our stories. We share them with you. Who we are, what we've gone through, and the path that lay ahead.
And good day, everybody. It is Brother Chris here. Especially today is an off day. We usually go live on Wednesdays and Saturday. I'm joined here today with my beautiful, young, gorgeous host, which is Gypsy Lady Eva. How are things over there in Michigan?
Things are fine. Today the sun is shining. The clouds are still cloudy, but it's beautiful right now.
Yeah.
Hardly any wind out there, and it's a decent temperature. It's like, yeah, this is what fall is supposed to be.
Yes. Well, for myself, though, I'm doing pretty good. I did a lot of walking over the weekend, so today is a day for rest for me. I'm watching things actually over top of television, and it's about today's show. So today's show, though, is Truth and Reconciliation Day, not only in Canada, but also within the States. Canada is the first location that got this stuff going. It's about the schools, about the Indigenous schools that are actually out there. Now, the States are actually going on, and we're supposed to be having a guest coming in shortly. Now, Eva, have you heard anything from the guest?
Not really.
Not really. Okay. All right. Well, Eva, you want to get...
She was going to be here and looking forward to meeting me.
Yeah. Do you want to get that door, though?
Sure.
Oh, hey, Jill. How's it going?
There she is.
Hi. How's everybody doing?
So, Jill asked you a question. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm sorry. You two were talking, so I was backing off. I'm doing fine. And how are you doing?
Doing all right. The weather out here is just as great.
So that's okay.
That's the best.
Yeah. So today,
so fine.
So today, though, what we're looking at though is to do with truth and reconciliation. Jillian, though, she's a parent herself. She is non-Indigenous, which is still awesome, though. For her to join us. Gypsy Lady Eva, though, is non-Indigenous, but she understands the Indigenous culture, so does Jillian. So where do we start, though? That's the big question. Why don't we throw this out?
I'll be right back.
No problem. So the big question, though, is, Jill, now, since today is Truth and Reconciliation, right, and people's children were taken away. We were kind of talking about this while you were actually on your drive here. What would you do if the government actually took your kids away?
I would be pretty pissed off that they would do something like that. They have no right to my kids. They're not entitled to taking my kids.
All right. But still, what would you do, though? Because you had no choice.
I would break every law there is to try and get my child back. I gave birth to that child. I carried my children for, as long as possible. So I'm not going to let anybody come in and take my kids from me. It's not right. It's not fair. And it shouldn't be allowed. Okay.
All right. Well, let you know, though, that there's been over 5,000 children taken away. They have found graves with most of the plot cemeteries altogether. Now, Eva, are you back with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I apologize. Just let me get my breath on this too. A neighbor just passed away.
No way. That's not good.
Yeah, 50 years old.
But
just give me a few minutes
no
here.
problem.
What did you have the question on?
So the question though is, what would you do if your children were taken away and you had no, like, you couldn't do a thing at all?
I don't know. I think I might do something terrible. So either one, I would go out in a flame of glory, or I would do everything I can to get my children back. I can't see not being without my children.
Yeah.
But I know what they did to the children of the Indigenous people. And when you gave me that to read, and I was thinking about that, one thing did come to mind. Trump has attempted to do the same thing when he was in office, and the Mexican people or people from Mexican border came over, and they would separate the children. They would take the children away.
Yeah.
So it still happens, and it still just, I'm clenching my teeth.
It's like yeah. So basically though, is children were taken away. They were taken away to schools.
Yes.
Now there are tons of schools throughout North America, which we call Turtle Island, because if you look at the shape of North America, it's actually in the shape of a turtle, so we call it Turtle Island. Now my ancestors, what I keep on saying though, and a lot of people don't believe me because of the way that my skin color is and the way I look, but I am actually third generation Indigenous. Jill, do I look Indigenous?
Not really.
So, Eva, do I look Indigenous?
No.
Okay, all right. But yes, no, I am actually third generation Indigenous.
Actually, no, you don't. I was going to say, but yeah, maybe your face shape, but okay. That's the anthropologist in me.
Yes.
He does look a lot like his dad, though.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah. So, but with my father, though, that you can actually see it. Anyway, so my family is originally from Moose Factory. We migrated down to Warren, Ontario, Sturgeon Falls. So for people that are geographic, that's right where we moved to. Now, in between that time period, though, we were putting actually into one of the Indigenous schools. Now, the Indigenous schools were miles away. And the school, though, that we were put into is Spanish Ontario. Now, I sent Eva actually a little note, which she will read, but she said, though, beforehand, what were you saying beforehand about right when I kept on saying Spanish?
I did not realize there was a village called Spanish. And in the note that you sent me, you say you're going to talk about the school in Spanish. And I'm going like, but I don't speak Spanish. And it just didn't make any sense to me as I read on. And it's like, what the hell is this all about? And then he sent me the note. And that's when I learned something new today. So I get to go back to bed.
Well, you get an A+ for it, but go ahead. I'll let you read about.
And that's where I learned about about the village called Spanish, and I find that interesting.
Yeah. So if you want to sort of read the highlight notes, that'd be wonderful. So that way, some of our viewers can actually be able to listen all together. And welcome, Jasper's mom. So Jasper's mom is actually on right now. We do say thank you very much for joining us. So yeah. All right. So I'll pass this over to Gypsy Lady Eva to read about Spanish Ontario.
Well, okay. The Spanish Indian Residential School was on the north shore of Lake Huron, and the school was a half a mile from the village of Spanish on the Canadian Pacific Railroad branch line from Sudbury to Sault Ste. Marie. Hey, I did say it right.
Yes, you did.
And most people of European descent were recorded in the first 8 pages of this whatever. And they were mostly from Europe, Ontario, and Quebec, but there were several were from Ireland, Scotland, Syria, Russia, and Netherlands. They were laborers, students, sawyers. What's a sawyer? And store owners, employees, merchants, farmers, also from the railroad, and school teachers. Okay, is that clear?
Yeah.
The Catholic Church owned and managed many of the schools with separate schools for boys and separate schools for girls. And the operating cost mainly comes from grants, excuse me, from the Department of Indian Affairs. And the annual per capita grant was $100 in 1916 for 130 students, and it was increased to 110 in 1917. And part of the operation cost came from the food produced at the schools, which that's what I find so interesting, kind of like slave labor to do these things.
Yeah.
And the schools were built in 1913 and were made to accommodate about 200 students. In 1916, the average attendance at this school was 133. And by 1918, 2 years later, there was 119 students. In 1922, they finally hit the 200 mark, and it rose to 224 and 23 and 237 by 1936. By 1942, there were 250 students at the school. They produced food-wise eggs, chicken, beef, veal, potatoes, turnips, and carrots. The nuns and sisters didn't receive salaries from any of this, but they were given certain expenses were covered from the school funds from these food things, which also occurred not only at the boys' school, but also the girls' school. And from this, they were able to feed the children, and the food for breakfast was porridge, milk, butter, bread, and for dinner was meat, potatoes, and bread. On Fridays, they had a macaroni kind of salad macaroni instead of the meat for lunch, being good Catholics. And for supper was beans or corn porridge, bread, tea, or milk. This is an interesting little fact. Butter was only given once a day. And the bread was the type of black bread made from a formula or a recipe obtained from a medical man known to them. The boys and girls at Spanish formed the largest Indian residential school in Ontario, owned by the Catholic Church. Both boys and girls were housed in a 3-story brick stone structure that was with full basements under them. So in some respect, they had it good, but from stories that I've heard otherwise, can I say it now?
Go ahead, because we've got that sensor actually on, so yeah, you go ahead.
Anyway, it's not the censor. I didn't know if you wanted me to talk about this or not.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
But from different things that I have read over the years, and from what I've seen on various news broadcasts, that there were the Catholic Church ran a lot of them with the nuns as doing all the work, in the girls and monks and such were in the boys, and they were very cruel to these children.
Yeah,
they were not very nice.
Yeah,
and part of it was because they were supposedly savages, which I read that and my blood just boils. And many times when these children died, they were just thrown into a grave, and that was it. They didn't even notify the parents. So there was not a lot of good things to say on some respects about these schools. Plus, they took them away from their parents. It's like, wait a minute, you don't do that.
So I think Jillian has something to say.
Go right ahead. I apologize. I get to talking, I forget.
No, it's all good. You're making some pretty good points. I think what the government had did back in the day, allowing the Catholic Church to do what they did, that gave them too much power. The Indigenous, otherwise known as the Native Indians back then, they were just living their life. They were doing what they knew best. They had a way of life that didn't agree with the modern day world that was coming upon them back in the day. So because they were different, they had to be changed in the mindset of the society back then. And I think the way the government and people did it was wrong. They went about it the wrong way.
Yes. The one thing that I find most interesting when you talk about the missionaries that came in and did a lot of this stuff in Canada, from what I remember reading, when the first settler or the first missionaries were of the Franciscan orders, and these brown robes, as they called them, were quite acceptable to the people because they didn't try and change them like you will become Catholic, but more like this is what we do. And they integrated beliefs into this so that they understood what the Christian faith was all about. Well, of course, that didn't last. They brought in the Jesuits, who were the soldiers of Christ, so to speak, and they made sure everybody was a good Catholic, whether they were or not. And that's where a lot of this stuff comes from in the schools, especially the ones run by the boys. I'm not sure exactly what orders were taking over on the the girls' side, but they too were very vehemently Catholic, and you will become Catholic and you will do it this way. So they not only did they rip them from their parents, they ripped them from their beliefs.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I get onto that.
No, it's fine. It's about enforcing or enslaving or trying to control someone's beliefs, and you have a few. If I remember reading my history books correctly, there are a few Indian children or Indigenous children that stood up for their beliefs and their rights, and they got persecuted for it, but they came out and grown up to be adults and had children, and they use that as their history, and they move forward and they said, this is what's right, this is what's wrong, and everybody has their own beliefs. You can't make somebody believe in something that they don't believe in. That's the hard part with one religion. It's pretty hard.
Well, if you sit down and really read the belief systems as written by an Indigenous person about the Indigenous beliefs, is very, very spiritual, far more than, dare I say it, I'm looking around to make sure the clouds are not there. So even more spiritual than the Catholic faith.
Oh, yeah.
One thing I've always admired of the Indigenous, when I was living out in Arizona, I did meet a medicine man who was a joy to deal with. And he taught me a lot of things that I never knew before. And part of it was the beliefs. And you start listening to this and it's like, oh my, this is almost going to the Buddhist side, It's very, very spiritual.
Yeah.
And I loved it. Yeah. I just loved it.
So basically, though, is of what I've learned, though, is if you stood up for your Indigenous right, you were actually beaten. Your hair was cut right when you showed up. It was cut majorly off. Hair for us Indigenous, though, is sacred. My hair, though, is short because I've always had it short. But still, the hair is more sacred for us Indigenous altogether. The hair was taken away. There's a lot of great stories actually out there to do with people that were beaten, and people are standing up, like what Gypsy lady even said, even what Jill said, is people are still standing up to date for the rights. The one thing though that I do have to say though is I'm the only one that's sitting here right now with an orange shirt on. Earlier today, I went next door, which is actually, if you live in Canada, you will know the grocery store. It is Giant Tiger. I went next door wearing my ribbon skirt. The staff member, most majority of the staff members there were told to wear an orange shirt, but a lot of them are not wearing an orange shirt. So for myself, though, that there is not full respectful. I know Jillian, though, she's got actually a purple shirt, but people are wearing purple ribbon skirts today. Also with orange ones. Eva,
Well, I'm there in spirit. Does
yeah,
that count?
yes, it does. Since we're talking about shirts, I'm going to put a little clip actually on, and it's talking about orange shirts. Right where the orange shirts came from, what actually happened to this young person. It's going to explain. So here we go.
Wade Chochwade up na Elia na Canada. Phyllis Webstad runs Quaugst. Strachum Chatlum Slakwin. Hello everyone here in Canada. My name is Phyllis Webstad. I'm from the Kennew Creek Dog Creek First Nation in Shawetmach, the land of the Shuswap people here in Williams Lake, BC. Today is Orange Shirt Day. I thank you for wearing an orange shirt today in honor of residential school survivors and their families and in remembrance of those that never made it home. I am third-generation residential school survivor. My grandmother attended for 10 years, along with her 10 children. When I turned 6 in July of 1973, Granny brought me to town to buy something for my first day of school. I chose a shiny new orange shirt. It was bright and exciting, just like I felt to be going to school for the first time. When I got there, my shirt was taken away and I never wore it again. You are our future. You will make sure that this history is never repeated. When I see people wearing an orange shirt or an Every Child Matters pin, for us survivors, it's like a little bit of justice in our lifetime for what happened to us. Guksham, thank you.
September 30th, this law was made so that they couldn't do it anymore. So that's what they use as the starting point.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I don't know how true that is, but I mean, sometimes that seems to be the logic in these things. It's, well, this happened on this day, so that's what we'll make it.
Yeah.
And unless you know the whole facts, you don't really know exactly the logic behind it.
So it's weird though, because we're talking and somehow the mute button was put back on right when I took it off, which is so weird. So I guess the energy didn't want us to talk today. So I'm going to play a little clips. Actually, again, those what we played. I do apologize on this for everybody. I don't know why, but it could be the spirits of the Indigenous that don't want this mentioned, which is well known. So I'm going to play a couple of clips of the meaning of the shirt.
You already played that one.
All right, but it didn't probably pick.
No, it was playing through it.
Okay, all right. But yeah, no. So again, though, is Jillian and Eva were saying though to do with certain dates. Certain dates though mean certain things. But yeah, it's so weird though. Energy though in this apartment has been off, and I don't know, Jill. Can you pick anything up?
Not right now.
Okay. All right, I know you're more tuned in with this, but yeah, so the energy has been actually off. I do apologize though that for stuff though. Again though, today does mean quite a bit to a lot of us. Jillian was just recapping though about what this day basically means. She was reading to do with over 15,000 bodies, or was it
150,000 students. First Nation, Inuit, and Métis children who were forcibly removed.
Yeah. Okay, all right. So yeah, so we've got all that. It might be actually right when the clip for after The orange shirt, though, that didn't work, which is so weird. But energy does work in a different way. Again, though, is national. So today is National Orange Shirt Day. A lot of people are wearing orange shirts over there in the States. So I know, though, that they're trying to push the stuff, but with what's going actually on right now, to do with the election, especially with Carrot Face. So there, Carrot Face actually has orange on.
Well, they do call him the orange turd.
Yes. So
among other things.
Yes. So yeah, he's always in support for the Indigenous people. Just look at him. He's got that orange on. But yeah, so there is so much going actually on nowadays, and it's hard to say.
Well, here in the States, because of the campaign and so many of the lies that he's told about what he's done, and you think he would walk on water.
Yes.
And the only way he could walk on water is if it was frozen, and then even that is questionable.
Yeah. Well, we are so sorry for the sound audio problem. It's weird though, because even I've been trying to post to do with Sally's show, which was supposed to be scheduled for Saturday. It was scheduled for Saturday, but not for live, which was so weird. It was scheduled actually just as a normal podcast. So technology in this department has been so wonky. Again, though, there's so much going actually on these days with the meetings, and also with orange shirt. So hopefully today you guys are wearing your orange shirt. If you guys want to be able to take part, click actually on that portion though that you can take part of the conversation by going live. Would love to hear from you guys all together for what today means for you guys. So besides it being a normal orange shirt day, and what you were saying to do with any other national holiday,
What's the question?
are you going to be more aware now of September 30th?
Probably, but probably not. I don't pay attention to days. My days blend. I can go to sleep on like a Saturday and wake up and it's a Friday and I'm like, where'd my week go? I don't really pay attention to days unless I have doctor's appointments or places to be. My days blend. Honestly, before you know it, we're going to be Thanksgiving, or my favorite holiday, Halloween. My favorite season is autumn, so because it's got Halloween. Yeah. So for me, honestly, a day is a day. They blend together, and if somebody doesn't tell me what day it is, heck, I don't even remember people's birthdays. So anybody listening out there, if it's your birthday and I forgot, I'm sorry. Happy birthday, belated or early. Happy birthday, Eva. If I missed your birthday.
I'm not sure when it is myself. I have to go look at a calendar.
And what about for you, Eva? Since September 30th, I know though that I always remind you about certain things, but will you remember about this day?
Well, when you first told it to me, I think during one of our first broadcasts last year.
Yeah.
In his day, I have not been aware of it. I am now, and it's something that I think about periodically, especially when I hear certain things in the news, which I've already discussed in
yes, in the other podcasts.
And it's like I am aware of it. I don't know if I'd wear an orange shirt. I remember to wear an orange shirt. Again, in this area, it's just you don't even hear anything about that.
Yeah.
Not that we didn't have Indigenous people, but I don't think we did any of the things here that was done elsewhere. That makes any sense?
That's okay.
Excuse me.
Yes. So for myself, though, I know for myself personally, I am Indigenous. I am proud to say that I am Indigenous. I'm a non-status Indigenous, right? And wish I could actually take the benefits. Today, one of Jillian's and my good friends, though, was in the March of Kitchener-Waterloo. If you guys want to be able to check out the march, underneath here, like underneath Facebook, go through for healing of 7 generations. They did do the march there, and it was live. Our friend, though, is in a wheelchair.
Yep.
And she just recently found out a couple years ago by doing the genealogy test, though, that she is Indigenous. She did get her status card. But again, though, it doesn't matter if you can walk. If you can't walk for parades, there's usually a float, though, that you can go on, or even transit takes part and be able to take part with inside of your march. Be active today and listen. If you have any questions, do with anything for Indigenous, ask anybody that's Indigenous. Since we're teachers, we've been here for 16,000 years on North America, on Turtle Island. So we're your teachers. Not history books, because history books don't really teach much. So, even they're shaking your head, no.
Well, no, it brings up something that a teacher once brought out, pointed out. History is just a bunch of lies that everybody agrees on.
Yeah. So.
And who's ever in power controls the history. Think about that, because, especially with the Indigenous people and what was done to them, not only in Canada, but here in the States, you never really hear of a lot of it. You hear about the Hollywood aspect of it, where the cavalry rode in to save the people and wiped out the Indian village because they were savages and all that. And it's like, no, that's not the way it happened.
No.
And if you can read a book that's been truly researched, a history book, you find out that the history you learned in school was nothing like what you learned in reality, or what this other, maybe a book that was written by an Indigenous person or something about that this is not the history that you were taught.
Yeah. So it's like,
go ahead. One that really got me is 2 years ago, I believe it was, in Mexico, they discovered a mass grave.
Yeah.
And they started doing DNA stuff.
Yeah.
Which I guess you can still do on really old bones.
Mm-hmm.
But the very, very most, all of the ones that they tested were Mayan, I believe. So Indigenous. And as they were doing the testing, they discovered that part of what was caused the death was attributed to smallpox. And this was like 500 people in this one grave, and there must have been more. And you just wonder. You never heard about that in school?
No. That's like
nope.
So I
learned that the Spaniards came in and that was it.
Yeah. So again, though, is my ancestors are from Spanish. Again, though, is just to recap, though, after the teaching actually of why the unsure happened. Again, those Eva didn't realize, though, that there was Spanish Ontario, because I always talked about Spanish, and then all of a sudden I sent Eva a note. She got to learn a little bit more. So she's gone to school today, which is awesome.
Yeah. So like I said, I learned something new, so I get to go back to bed.
Yes. All right. So I'm going to get Jillian just to recap exactly what the breakfasts were. Actually in Spanish Ontario. If Jillian would like to.
Okay, the food for breakfast was porridge, milk, bread, and butter. For dinner, meat, potatoes, bread. On Fridays, they had macaroni instead of meat for lunch. For supper, beans or corn porridge, bread, and tea or milk. Butter was given only once a day. The bread was a type of black bread made from a formula obtained from a medical man known to them.
Yeah. So that was actually served every single day. There was a lot of stuff done actually within the schools. And the school, the girls' school is still standing to date. The boys' school's not. I did take my sibling there, and she didn't have a clue what was going on. Her reply was, "Why are we here?" Right when I always told her prior to though that we were going to take her to right where our ancestors were forced to go to school. So learn some history and learn knowledge. That's always best way. But anyway, so from us to you guys, we do say thanks a lot for tuning in. We'll be live tomorrow, which will be Gypsy, Lady Eva, and myself. We're looking at Canada this week for haunted locations. We're looking at that
tomorrow.
Yes, we are. Yeah.
You learned
Sorry,
something
not
new,
tomorrow.
Eva?
Sorry, Wednesday. I do apologize.
Okay, thank you. It's like that. Well, that's a new one to me.
Yeah.
Stop doing that to her.
Yeah, so we're live Wednesday and we're live Saturday. So we're dealing with Canada and also Ontario with haunted locations. Again, though, we're going to be doing live actually at 2:00 Eastern Standard Time. As always, unless if it's recorded, then it's not live. It is actually posted still on the stream. So we're going to join us actually on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Again, we're dealing with haunted locations across Canada, and that's how we're going to start that. And then we're going to go to Ontario because we're going to be talking about some locations that we were kind of talking about with the Queen of Ooga Booga for this past week. So again, thanks for tuning in. You guys have an awesome day.
Have a good day, guys.
And have a great week.
Residential schools focused on assimilation, cutting the long hair of children, and cutting their ties to their culture. Children were punished severely, and sometimes even beaten for speaking in their language or following their traditions. Indigenous children were isolated from their homes and their communities, from the nurturing support of their parents, from their language, from their traditions, and from their cultures. Thousands of Indigenous children died while attending residential schools. Some of these buildings still stand. The unmarked graves that scatter the country lie silent. Today, residential school survivors still carry the scars of abuse. Many of those scars have been passed down to the generations who have followed. But the survivors are also strong. They have fought hard to bring their experiences to light and continue to demand justice and accountability. This has paved the way for the reclamation of cultural traditions, relearning of languages, and healing.